Hi, welcome to a news episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adeep Mahmood, with my normal co-host, Hunter. And today we're going to be talking about the NFL draft and our thoughts on Ravens, Steelers, and the other situations that are going on. So let's talk about NFL draft. Let's first we'll talk about Shedeur. That will be its own topic. Ravens, Steelers can be its own topic. What team stood out? What team stood out to you?
Well, the Cleveland Browns had a very interesting draft, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Taking two quarterbacks on day 2 and day 3. That quarterback room is something else. So you have Deshaun Watson, who's hurt, and I don't think he's playing ever again for the Browns. We may not even see him ever play an NFL snap ever again, honestly. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. That is certainly one of the quarterback rooms of all time. I don't think the Browns are going to be very good this year, but I think that's kind of implied, to be honest. Certainly, again, very odd draft. I understand they got a haul for the second overall pick. I totally get that. I know why they made the deal because of what happened with Watson, how much they gave up to get him. But to me, even though it was a haul, I'm still not trading away from Travis Hunter. That is a generational talent, someone that I would not have passed up on. Good for the Jaguars. They made that trade. They got the best player in the draft, in my opinion. If I were the Browns, man, I would just hung on to the pick and I would just taken Travis Hunter. But hey, that's just my opinion on that. I understand other people disagree. That's how I see it. I thought, other teams that really stood out to me, I thought the Commanders had a pretty solid draft, honestly. I thought the Eagles, once again, they're really getting all the pass rushers they can. Howie Roseman loves building up the trenches. And once again, I thought the Eagles really had a good draft here. Those were just a few of the teams that really, I guess, stood out to me, during this process. What about you?
So I think the first round, Falcons really stood out because they went out. They brought back Leonard Floyd. They have Leonard Floyd there, and then you go out and get James Pierce Jr. and the Georgia pass rusher, and
you gave up a 2026 first round pick for that.
That was the weird part. That was the weird part. That was the weird part because I also felt like they probably could have gotten it without the giving up a first round pick.
Right.
I mean, the first thing that stood out, Jaguars, I thought there was a great trade. I still can't believe, look, it's going to take a very, very, very long time for me to understand that the Jacksonville Jaguars GM is not a high school senior. It's going to be very, very, because he looks really young. Like if you put him next to all the other GMs.
You know what he looks like? Someone that works at a car dealership.
Yeah. But no, I thought that was a good move. I think, the Jaguars also, I thought that was a good, you get Travis Hunter, that's a good draft.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Also, you want to reestablish your identity, that's one way to do it. It's better than Ron Weasley trying to say Duval. I think they got past that point. So we're good there. I'm not kidding. The guy looks like Ron Weasley.
That's fair. That's good.
But
they had a good draft overall. They got some more playmakers. There's no excuses now for Trevor Lawrence. If he can't make it work here, I think he's just the guy.
Jalen Lane, I think I like Tootin. I like Bashal Tootin there.
I love that he's going there. That's a good destination for him. He should be getting snaps right away. Running back 1, running back 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the Cardinals had a good defensive draft pretty early on with Will Johnson and Walter Nolan. The Eagles continued with Campbell from the linebacker from Alabama, Makuba, the safety. I thought some of these drafts were pretty good. The Panthers, I think they brought in some big dudes in that D line. They had a pretty good. I like their draft, and I think the Commanders certainly had especially in the second round was Amos.
Yeah,
I thought that was a good pick.
And Lane is good for them because he can be a good wide receiver 3 option behind Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. Jane Daniels will have plenty of weapons on this offense. I think the Commanders are going to be really off and running. I do like the Titans draft as well. I'm excited to see what Cam Ward can do. I really liked how classy Warren Moon was. allowing him to wear his number 1 for the Titans that was retired. That was a really awesome moment after he was about to do his press conference. But I'm excited to see what Cam Ward can do with the Titans.
Yeah, I thought the Patriots start was pretty good. I mean, you went out and get Henderson, the running back. Yep. You got the you got the tackle. That Jared Wilson looks like he could be a good replacement for Andrews. Farmer was like, I thought he was someone that could have gone in the second, third round, dropped all the way to the fifth. Brady Swinston, they got a pretty good edge rusher. So and then the Miami kicker, they also went out, got the Miami kicker. I thought the Bengals don't quite understand what they were doing. They were building their defensive line. I like Shamar Stewart, but he's kind of like all production. What was it like? He's all projection, but limited production. So, I mean, luckily for a time being, they have Hendrickson, but like, are you like, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think that was a good first round pick by them?
I understand why they did it, but at the end of the day, they got to figure out what's going on with Hendrickson here. They got to figure out how to pay him because it's good. You got your 2 big offensive stars here. How are you going to fit Hendrickson in? Like, that's still the biggest piece of business that they have to get done. So I get why they made the pick, but I think Trey Hendrickson is still sitting there kind of like, hey, I want my money. Like they talked a big game before the offseason started, we're going to keep all 3 of them. We're going to show everyone that we're not cheap anymore. They're 2/3 of the way there. Let's see if they can finish this off. So, I thought they were fine as well. Otherwise, I'm trying to figure out like what really, stood out to me. It was the Packers going with the wide receiver in the first round. That was really cool because they haven't done that. And I actually thought they had a pretty decent draft themselves as well. I thought the Bears were decent as well. Did you anything else really stand out to you before we get to the Ravens and the Steelers?
No, nothing really. Yeah, nothing really stood out for me. Anything more on that one? Why don't you start with Steelers?
Yeah, so the Steelers, I thought for the first round, it was going to be between Harmon, Grant, and Shedeur Sanders. So Shedeur Sanders, obviously the Colorado quarterback, Kenneth Grant from Michigan, and then Derek Harmon from Oregon. And once Grant went, I'm like, okay, so 50-50 shot here. And the Steelers went with the logical option here, and that is Derek Harmon. By the way, the fact that they didn't take a quarterback until the 6th round kind of tells you their confidence level with Aaron Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh. I know he hasn't made a decision yet. I know he was just on McAfee about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, said a lot of stuff. But to me, they've kind of made it clear where they stand and that they feel like they have a really good shot to get him this offseason and that he will decide to play in Pittsburgh. But, Derek Harmon, he's someone that can play right away, can play along the edge. He's not going to be, I think, the full nose tackle, but Cam Hayward, he can take him under his wing, teach him the ropes a little bit. And I think he has the makings of a pretty good NFL player. Like they have really needed help along the defensive line for the last couple of years. I like Keanu Benton, but I still want to see a little bit more consistency out of him. Cam Hayward had an all-pro season last year. Probably could have gotten a couple of votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Was never going to win it, but he had a better year last year than TJ Watt, but some people aren't going to admit that. But he did. He was absolutely outstanding, even though he's in his mid-30s. But he's not going to be playing at that level that much longer. He's going to be 36 this upcoming season. So they needed to get him some help. Really big fan of the pick. He seems like a great kid. And right after he got picked, I'm sure you saw this, he went over to the hospital because his mom was on life support to tell his mom that he got picked. She unfortunately passed away right after. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family during this time. But it was still great that he was able to go over there and tell her that he got drafted. So, again, he seems like a really, really good kid with everything like that. After that, they didn't have the 2nd round pick because of DK Metcalf. Then they got Caleb Johnson, who a running back out of Iowa. He's a good compliment to Jaylen Warren. Some people were trying to compare Caleb Johnson to Najee Harris. Caleb Johnson is a more explosive back to me, in my opinion. He breaks tackles a little similarly than like Najee, but he's still a different back outside of that. He's way more explosive as a runner, I think, compared to Najee Harris. So this will be a nice compliment to Jaylen Warren. Jack Sawyer, that was the one that was kind of a bit weird to me, but he plays his tail off every snap. They want all the pass rushers or the outside linebackers that they can get because last year, TJ was a bit banged up down the stretch. Highsmith missed time. Nick Herbig missed some time. So they're trying to really stack these pass rushers to make sure that they have enough in case injuries come up. He was obviously very good for Ohio State. And then you have Will Howard a bit later on. And I'm fine with this. I think he was one of the better quarterbacks in this class, but I'm fine that they waited until the 6th round pick. He's going to be competing for the quarterback 2, quarterback 3 spot going into training camp. And if they do sign Rodgers, I want Will Howard to get most of the preseason snaps. You have nothing else to lose by doing that. Mason Rudolph, you already know what you have in him. If you sign Rodgers, he's a capable backup, but I don't think he's a starter that you can play for 17 games. He can fill in for a pinch, but I think he's at best a backup in this league, a good backup, I should say. But Will Howard, you got to at least see what he can do in the preseason. He looks like, again, he played really well for Ohio State in the college football playoff. That was his best football of the year, in my opinion. He has a really nice deep ball. He's mobile, which Mike Tomlin really loves. So I like that pick. And then they took the Washington linebacker. They finally took a slot corner to end the draft as well. So, hey, I will take this as well. And they also double dipped and took another defensive lineman out of Iowa in the 5th round. The biggest thing I can say to end this or wrap this up, Adid, is that they took the Ravens playoff loss very personally after what Derrick Henry did to them. So those are just my main thoughts. I'll give it at least if I had to assign a letter grade, which I don't really like doing, I'll give it like a solid B. They address their needs, but obviously the big one is still quarterback, but they're very much waiting for Aaron Rodgers at this point. So those are my thoughts on the Steelers draft.
Yeah, and I thought the Jack Sawyer pick it's pretty good because you still got Highsmith, you still have TJ Watt. You have a nice trio of pass rushers. Sawyer was probably someone that I think was another second, third rounder. I think kind of fell because the combine wasn't great for him. As for the Ravens, let me just get my notes here. That for Ravens, I do like the draft. The Ravens, the funny part is they had there were 2 quarterbacks that are picked within the first 26, and yet the Ravens were still able to get a top 15 talent.
Yeah.
Again,
this was a very Ravens draft, man. With some of those selections, I'm like, yep, that's a Raven. That's a Raven. You can just tell the players they draft are born to be Ravens. Just like I felt like you could tell some of the Steelers picks that they took are born to be Steelers. It actually is kind of funny how that it's similar.
Yeah, so let's start off with so Malachi Starks, I do like that he's smart, he's instinctive, not the fastest guy. So obviously I think it's athletes with extreme quickness more than likely won't be you might struggle against those. Obviously, against bigger dudes, maybe he'll struggle a little bit. But I do like the chess piece that you have with him, Darius Washington, and Kirk Cousins. So I do you can kind of now move now you have multiple pieces that are similar traits, because before, if Kyle Hamilton were to miss some snaps, the defense clearly fell apart, and that was a big concern. That was a big concern. So with Malachi Starks now, you now have more depth in there, and if you have both, that's great. I would say it's I think he can do better with his run stopping angles. I do think that there's a little bit of positional bias that dropped him down to 27. But I think if you compare him with Amenwari, then Amenwari was more of a projection-wise, he could be really good. Malachi Starks is a production-wise, he's also really good. Maybe he's not going to be what Amenwari is. And by the way, I thought that was a good pick by the Seahawks. They got their own Kyle Hamilton. Jalen Milroe's there now. We'll see if he does. If that's a 1-year deal with Darnold. So that's Malachi Starks. Mike Green, we know the off-field issues. They must have done their research if they were going to draft him. That's all I'm going to say. Very productive, good first step. Does have a wide variety of pass rush moves. He could get too eager on run defense. Now I know. Remember Ngakoue?
Yeah.
So remember how Ngakoue was a little he was very much a pass rusher, but against run defense, don't put him in run defense. He sucks there. I think Mike Green is better in run defense. but I do think he is a bit of more of a pass rusher at this point. You pair him on the outside because you got Kyle Van Noy on the last year of his deal, Odafe Owe. You got the 5th-year option with Odafe Owe. We'll see what happens there. Ojabo doesn't stay on the field that often, so you definitely need the depth. So I do like that pick. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens were to bring in another pass rusher after the draft. Mike Green, Emory Jones, right tackle from LSU, probably a guard. He's probably a guard. He's a better run blocker than pass blocker, but that's all. That is every lineman. Was really good in 2023. Only gave up 1 sack. Very durable, but the technique could get a little inconsistent, and so in 2024 his performance kind of dropped a little bit. Then the 4th-round pick, Teddy Buchanan, incredibly athletic linebacker, kind of reminds me a little of Kenny Young from a few years ago. Good speed, struggles in run defense and tackling. Maybe a little more refinement, probably a special teamer to start with. So I think Trenton Simpson is still relatively safe. Carson Vincent, developmental tackle from Alabama A&M, 6'7", could be good, but lower competition level. I think get the technique a little more refined, and maybe you can look at him as a 6th lineman. So if you see the Ravens putting in 6 linemen, it's probably him. Bilal Cohn, good in zone coverage, struggles in man or press coverage, so very specific. 4.43 speed, good ball skills. Again, developmental guy. I'll talk about Tyler Loop after. LeJontay Wester, I don't think no one knew about him too much because obviously he had famous teammates at Colorado. Quick twitch receiver, smaller guy, 5'10", 163. Probably a punt returner, highly productive with 900 yards in the last 2 years. With him being 5'10", 163, you would assume that the same concerns that you have are still there. I do like that this allows Flowers to be more of your outside threat. So if you want to move Wester to more of a screen pass, and now again, multiple, Wester and Flowers. So I do like that. And you can also use Wester in the slot and as a diversion as well with Bateman. And by thing, like I said, punt return. So think Devin Duvernay. Think Devin Duvernay, but the size of a Flowers or Hollywood Brown. We both know Aeneas Peebles. That is going to be a really good move. I think that is one of my favorite moves that they made. Good pass rush in the middle. Could get slightly better in the run defense, but an undersized guy that if he was, I think it's fair to say if Peebles was a couple inches taller, he probably goes in a second. He probably is a third roundish talent. So a bit of a steal there.
Can we say congratulations to the Hokies that were drafted yesterday?
Yep.
That was awesome. 5, if my notes are corrected. 5, yeah. I just have to make sure I have that in my notes right. 5. And it stinks. Well, the part that stinks is that the team last year only won 6 games. With how talented this team was, 5 players got drafted from Virginia Tech. So just want to say congratulations to everyone that got drafted. APR, Jalen Lane, Bayshall Tootin, and Aeneas Peebles.
And I like those spots, and I like those, and I think it's fair to say some of those they landed in pretty good spots, like Peebles, Baltimore, Jalen Lane with Commanders, Tootin with Jaguars, and I believe
APR was the Eagles.
Yeah, Eagles.
Yeah, and then who are we forgetting for some reason? Oh, who are we forgetting? Why am I blanking on that? I should have that on my notes. I believe APR I believe was that he is Philadelphia.
Yeah. Dorian Strong.
Dorian Strong. Oh my God, yeah. I can't believe I blanked on that.
Bills.
Yeah. Bills.
Dorian
Yes,
Bills.
correct. That's awesome. I'm excited. But yeah. And APR to the Eagles. Again, very much an Eagles pick.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be scary because I can see APR like 7 or 8 sacks a year. Like what's the way they just move him around.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about. I'm going to talk a little bit about Tyler Loop before we do talk about Shador in his own topic.
Yeah.
What I will say is, Harbaugh did say Justin Tucker was working out with the team. That does not mean Justin Tucker. I think it doesn't mean anything that Justin Tucker was told to stay away. It doesn't mean that they're going to keep him. And what it means is let the process play itself out. All I'm going to say is the last issue with Tucker was 8 years ago, 9 years ago. It's 16 acquisitions is a very serious thing, but it is between basically his first 4 years. I think it's like around right when he got his first major contract. I don't know what happened there. Maybe he cleaned up his behavior. But as far as we know, Tucker's still on this team. He still might be a post-June 1st cut. So this does not mean Tyler Loop is going to replace Justin Tucker. So I like him. Consistent technique, good leg strength. His elevation's pretty good. Sometimes the technique can get a little inconsistent. So I do think that it's a good training camp kicker. And let's just look at it as a training camp kicker. Let's just look at it as a training camp kicker for now. So I'm not reading too much into this. So let's just do a couple more topics. One, let's go talk about the NFL draft and this Shador Sanders thing, and then we'll talk about some moves that could happen after the draft. So the Shador Sanders thing, let me say this. Deion Sanders is Deion Sanders. Shador Sanders was good in Colorado. The problem is that does not mean that he is going to be good in the NFL. I get it. He shares the last name. And I don't get this whole collusion thing because at the end of the day, I think teams would love to have Deion supporting their team even more because of the brand. So why would teams be actively avoiding Shador, especially when Shador plays one of the most important positions? Now, I think the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, the Mel Kipers of the world, they were overcooking this to be on Deion's good side.
Who defends you the way Mel Kiper defends Shador Sanders? Like, it was just overkill at times listening to it on television, honestly. Like, you can see Reese Davis, he never gets fired up. He even at times was getting a bit fired up about it. It was just a lot, honestly. But, like, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Like, he went from a projected top 3 to top 5 pick to a day 3 pick. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was going to still go in the first round. I didn't see him falling out of day 2. Just a crazy slide. But I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well. You know, we'll have to see how Kevin Stefanski develops him in Cleveland. But I did not see that coming at all. I will say him, though, man. Steelers, that was a pretty good smokescreen. They brought him in for a visit. A lot of people were mocking him there. Heck, even the morning of, I was still thinking there was a decent chance they were going to pick him. They said, nope, we're not doing it. We're taking Derek Carman. They get their next pick. He's still there. They're like, oh, we could take him now. Nope, we're going to take a running back. Even the next pick after that, they're like, oh, we could take him. He's still there. Nope, they keep going. So that was a pretty big smokescreen from the Steelers. But also, I did want to say this, the weird college kids that prank called him. Come on. Like, are we really?
Apparently, it was like a Falcons, the son of the Falcons coordinator.
I think like someone, his son was in, I don't think he prank called him, but he was in the same room as the person that did it. Like, I think he's friends with the guy or something like that. But still, it's a childish act. There's no place for it. And apparently, Tyler Warren was also prank called. And I think there's a potential connection between the two. And it sounds like other players may have been prank called as well. I thought we left prank calling in 2008, man. I don't know why this is still happening. And just a very, very childish act to me. But with Shador, again, I hope he does well with Cleveland. I just did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I thought that was pretty pathetic. Like maybe you can justify it in like the second round, third round, but after the second round, like just stop at that point. Um,
Well, I'm not going to justify what. Sorry.
yeah, no, and yeah, I think it's just overkill at that point. So now we're gonna do the last one, which is I'm gonna share. We're gonna look at on CBS Sports 10 moves that should be made after this NFL draft. And
You weren't saying justify the prank call, right? Just justify.
No. I'm saying that it's a little funny in the second round. After the second round, not anymore.
Oh, okay. For what? Sorry, I'm like confused.
No, like in terms of timing, like don't kick a guy when he's down, when he's available in the third round or the fourth round or the fifth.
No. Okay, I hear you on that. I think for me, like just like don't do it. Period. I think it's just like lame. Like why even stoop to that level? Like I don't know. Just weirdo, chronically online people, I guess.
All right, let's take a look. And all right, so these are so this CBS Sports. We're going to end this with 10 moves that.
And there was actually earlier. This is actually the statement just now. Earlier in the week, Jax Ulbrich, the 21-year-old son of defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, he came across the draft contact phone number for Shedeur Sanders off an open iPad while visiting his parents' house, and he wrote the number down to later conduct a prank call. Jeff was unaware of the data exposure and was made aware of the above only after the fact. The Atlanta Falcons do not condone this type of behavior, and we want to apologize to Shedeur Sanders and his family. We've also been in contact with the NFL, continue to cooperate fully with any inquiries. So, yep, it was his son that apparently wrote down the phone number, and the dad had no idea.
Sure. So, yeah. So let's look at these 10 moves that they made. 10 moves that should be made in our thoughts. So, first one, Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. That's coming. Kirk Cousins to the Saints. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't think the Saints are going to do that. Why would you trade for that contract, by the way? Like, unless he gets released. But, like, I know the Saints have their quarterback issues right now with Derek Carr, but I don't think they're going to – there's no way the Falcons will trade him to the Saints.
Will Levis to the Buccaneers. I mean, maybe it's a backup. I could see that.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett to the Lions.
He's going to get dealt again after they brought in 3 more quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Wentz to the Cowboys, that's weird because, like, they just traded for Joe Milton, and I think he's going to be Dak Prescott's backup. So why would Carson Wentz go there?
Nick Chubb to the Bears.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, J.K. Dobbins to the Chiefs.
That would be fun. They would find a way to utilize him, especially knowing Andy Reid.
Cooper to the Broncos. That could be interesting. Yeah. Keenan Allen to the Chargers. Could be another option. Von Miller to the Eagles would be unfair. That would be.
No, thanks. I know he's older now. I know he's been banged up, but I'm good. I don't want to see that.
Yeah. No, thank you on that one. By the way, I didn't think Von Miller was available. Like I still available. I thought maybe a fit for the Ravens. Like if you want another veteran pass rusher in there, I could see Von Miller going to the Ravens. That could be a fun one. So I think we'll end the show on that note. Next week, we'll talk about some of the we'll figure out what to talk about next week, depending on the news, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, see you then.